Once you have a sketch in place, you want to think about a grid system. A grid system is a way that can streamline your design process. And if you're coding the site by yourself, then you're probably already comfortable with the concept of a grid system. If you're not doing the coding, you may want to talk to the developer about it. They probably already use some type of grid system, and they can point you in the appropriate direction to have you use a grid system within Photoshop. Right now, I'm looking at a grid system called 960 Grid System. It's probably one of the most popular grid systems out there. It can be found at 960.gs. You'll notice that there's a couple different links here that give you the ability to download different assets, one of which is a Photoshop file. And you can use that Photoshop template in the background, so when you create your layout, you can make sure that you're staying true to the grid system. If you want to take a look at some examples of websites that use the 960 grid system, you can scroll down and you can see some websites that use the 16-column version and others that use the 12-column version. And if you're having a hard time visualizing how that grid system plays a role within the layout, you can choose Show Grid. And when you do that, you'll see all the columns within the grid, identifying how each of these components stay within these columns. So the 960 grid system, like I said, is fairly popular. It is losing popularity for the simple reason that it's not responsive, meaning that it's essentially a fixed width layout. It's always going to be 960 pixels regardless of the device that you're using to view the content. Clearly, mobile devices, tablet devices, cell phones, things along those lines are becoming very popular to consume website content. And because of that, a lot of designers like to create responsive websites, which simply means they're websites that will change appearance based upon a specific resolution, ideally targeting different types of devices. So if you are in fact viewing a website on a cell phone, you'll get a different presentation than what you would otherwise see on a desktop. So you'll notice that this website is pointing you to another one called unsemantic.com. If you come over here, you'll see a website that talks about the unsemantic grid system. And here you have download options, again, giving you the ability to work with this grid system. And furthermore, how you can essentially use it as a guide within Photoshop. Finally, there's another website here called A Better Photoshop Grid System for Responsive Web Design. It's based on a width of 1,000 pixels. Because of that, it's really easy to break down each of the columns in a pixel value and a percentage. Again, there's a lot to grid systems, and I don't want to talk about grid systems in great detail. If you are a designer, if you're going to be writing the code yourself, you probably already know quite a bit about grid systems. If you don't, you can check out our CSS layouts course here on Train Simple, where we review different types of grid systems. So what we want to do is look at our sketch that we viewed in the last video, compare that to a grid system, come up with one that makes sense. Oftentimes, designers and developers like working with a particular grid system so you can make your sketch kind of work for that grid system. In the next video, what I'm going to do is show you an extension that you can use to set up your own grid guides within Photoshop without having to download any additional assets from third parties.